Britain's Conservative government struck a controversial deal with Rwanda to send some asylum seekers thousands of miles away to the East African country, a move that opposition politicians and refugee groups condemned as inhumane, unworkable, and a waste of public money. The 5-year trial will send some refugees to Rwanda to claim asylum there. They may be granted permanent refugee status to stay in Rwanda. If not, they can apply to settle there on other grounds, or seek asylum in a safe third country. The policy is aimed at people who arrive in the UK through what the government calls illegal, dangerous, or unnecessary methods, such as on small boats or hidden in lorries, when they could have claimed asylum in another safe country, such as France. Opposition politicians accuse the government of trying to distract attention from a scandal over government parties that breached pandemic lockdown rules. On April 14, 2022, Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who has since resigned, claimed that the UK is a beacon of openness and generosity. He praised the great British tradition of providing sanctuary to those who seek it legally, while outlining his plans to combat what he called illegal migration. People claiming asylum in the UK will be relocated to Rwanda, where their cases will be processed, under this new scheme. They will be encouraged to stay in Rwanda for at least 5 years if granted asylum. While the UK government has promised that operations will run smoothly, it is unclear how asylum seekers relocated from the UK will be accommodated in Rwanda, other than temporary plans to convert a former hostel into a detention center. Rwanda issued a statement confirming the agreement, but neither government provided full details on how it would work. There is also no indication of what will happen to those who are denied asylum. The legality of this process is being questioned by religious, international, and human rights organizations. This attempt to move the immigration process offshore, however, is not unprecedented. It is part of a larger strategy used by powerful governments from Australia to the EU to discourage unwanted arrivals by creating hostile or inhumane conditions. And, by outsourcing migration management to low-income countries, richer countries advance their own geopolitical interests. Human displacement is becoming a driving force behind what experts call 21st-century imperialism. Migration is more than just a result of poverty, inequalities, conflict, and environmental crises. It serves as a political tool. Sending asylum seekers to another country violates their right under the International Refugee Convention to have their cases heard in the country where they chose to seek refuge. It deprives them of agency. It effectively doubles their displacement. And it exposes them to further risk and uncertainty, namely Rwanda's troubling human rights record. A dozen refugees were reportedly killed by Rwandan police in 2018 after protests outside the UN High Commissioner for Refugees' offices in Karongi district. The Rwandan government, on the other hand, denied the allegations, accusing Human Rights Watch of a history of publishing false allegations and fabrications. According to the Rwandan government, the migrants will be given a variety of opportunities for building a better life in a country that has consistently been ranked as one of the world's safest. Furthermore, the UK government states in its Rwanda travel advisory that homosexuality is not illegal in the country but remains frowned upon by many. Because there are no specific anti-discrimination laws that protect LGBT people, they may face discrimination and abuse, including from local authorities. According to the UK government, the scheme will primarily apply to undocumented single men. Its primary goal is to combat the people-smuggling business model. Similar migration deals have occurred in Rwanda in the past. The UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, is in charge of a separate migrant deal that saw hundreds of asylum seekers relocated from Libya to Rwanda. They are staying at Gashora, a camp about 60 kilometers south of the capital. Since 2019, nearly 1,000 people, the majority of whom are originally from the Horn of Africa, have been relocated there. Officials report that 626 people have been resettled in third countries, primarily Canada, Sweden, Norway, France, and Belgium. According to research, however, the majority of undocumented migrants are fleeing areas affected by conflict, poverty, and environmental crises, among other issues. In comparison to the Rwanda Agreement, the safe haven provided to Ukrainian refugees demonstrates that UK immigration policy is biased in terms of race, religion, and skill set. Johnson has also referred to the Rwanda scheme as a prototype, implying that it could be replicated elsewhere. There have undoubtedly been precedents, such as Australia's infamous arrangements with Nauru and Papua New Guinea to house asylum seekers on Manus Island. These so-called processing centers are essentially detention facilities. Meanwhile, the EU is in talks with the government of Niger to establish border zones on African soil through its Border and Coast Guard Agency, Frontex. The goal, with the support of the International Organization for Migration, is to keep undocumented people in the country while their cases are being processed. According to research, plans like these are a strategy of empowerment for already powerful nations. They enable them to return unwanted migrants, particularly those from outside Europe, to poorer countries. At the same time, they provide richer countries with a political and economic foothold in areas of interest. When Johnson's government merged the Department for International Development with the Foreign Office in 2020, he effectively ended international aid. Instead, international development was incorporated into diplomacy and guided by national and international political strategy. According to the agreement signed by the UK and Rwandan governments for the Asylum Partnership Arrangement, the deal will last 5 years from the date it takes effect and may be renewed during the 4th year. Rwanda is drawn to the UK's offer of £120 million to kickstart this partnership because it falls under the purview of development. The country is ranked 160th out of 189 in the 2021 Human Development Index, has long received UK foreign aid and international assistance, and already hosts nearly 130,000 refugees, 90% of whom are still in refugee camps and transit centres. The program would help raise Rwanda's international profile as an active participant in global migration and refugee governance. Meanwhile, it represents yet another business interest in Africa for the United Kingdom. Johnson emphasized the UK's ability to support ventures and desire to strengthen partnerships with Africa at the 2020 UK-Africa Investment Summit. While the UK's growing relationship with the continent is framed in terms of development, the question of the UK's larger intent arises. These are fundamentally unequal partnerships. They seek to strengthen the UK economy through foreign investments that generate more revenue than the initial investment. Investing in poorer countries abroad benefits the UK financially. It is also a component of the British government's post-Brexit strategy. Evidence suggests that the surplus from such investments will inevitably flow back to the richer countries in the long run. This contributes to the perpetuation of global structural inequalities. It contributes little to long-term development. Africa is both struggling to develop and rich in resources, despite a slew of environmental, social, and economic issues. Rwanda not only has a mining industry in tin ore, gold, tungsten ore, and methane, but it also has Lake Kivu, which is extremely rich in gases and could be used to generate energy. The Rwanda scheme bears disturbing resemblances to the UK's imperial past, the colonial transportation of slaves and indentured workers across continents and seas, the empowerment of the imperial heartland through the violence that accompanied its historical ravages, for which reparation will never be complete. In a reenactment of colonial politics, it assigns Africa to work for the UK's interests for only short-term financial gain. Long-term, Africa's needs remain unsatisfied. Meanwhile, the first deportation flight to Rwanda carrying people who entered the UK illegally was scheduled to depart on June 14, 2022. Originally, 37 people were due to be on the flight, but legal challenges had already reduced that number to about 7 before it was cancelled. Charities and lawyers representing asylum seekers have launched a series of legal challenges against the policy. Critics question whether Rwanda is a safe destination and argue that the scheme breaks the European Convention on Human Rights. As a result, some individuals had already been removed from the flight. But a final attempt to block it altogether was rejected by the Court of Appeal and upheld by the Supreme Court. However, the flight was halted after a late intervention from the European Court of Human Rights. This isn't an EU body but is part of the Council of Europe, which still counts the UK as a member. The Supreme Court is due to hold a judicial review of the policy in July. If it says it is unlawful, any asylum seekers sent to Rwanda could be returned. However, other Western countries, such as Denmark, are considering similar agreements with Rwanda. Will the resignation of Boris Johnson wane the standing of the new policy before the Supreme Court? Let's see how this controversial deal plays out. Thanks for watching. If you like this type of content, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories.